was the first president of the United States of America.
He was a general in the war.
He was a hero.
He was called the father of our country.
The myths that we know now begin very soon after he dies. But Washington always behaved in a way that was calculated to make an impression. There's nothing insincere about this. You take on a certain role that you want to perform in the world, then you behave in that way. And then if you do that, you become that role. Meanwhile, everyone is responding to you in that role. Everybody needs stories. You have to have them. Now, of course, with Washington, you didn't need to make up very many of them because the actual stories of what he did, of what he really did, were very impressive. Washington is considered one of our greatest presidents because revolutions are not easy. It's a fantasy to think that just because a cause is just, that it will prevail, and that if it prevails, the system that follows will work. And most of the time, if you look at all the revolutions from ours in the last 225 years, most of them have failed. But one important thing about Washington's legacy requires some imagination to appreciate, and that's to think of all the things that could have gone wrong. The war could have been lost. The army could have grabbed for power. The government could have gone broke. The country could have split apart. The first president could have stayed on, could have died in office rather than at home in retirement. All these things could have happened, and one of the main reasons they didn't happen was because George Washington was determined to do his job in a certain way, and he did it.
Washington was not an especially learned man, but he surrounded himself with the brightest intellects of the day.
Washington was, in many ways, a kind of an apolitical person. He was interested in leading, but he wasn't terribly interested in legislation and policy. And he wasn't a great student of politics and exploring political alternatives. And I think both Hamilton and Jefferson and Madison, who also was interested in influencing Washington, see his presidency as a great opportunity because he's not pushing himself. If they could get his ear, as it were, they could see the country move in the direction that they preferred.
In the early years of the Republic, Washington was an essential source of national stability.
I think the two adjectives that would describe Washington as president and as leader in the 1790s would be dependable and realistic. Dependable, and what they mean by that is they can trust him. They know they can put their liberties in the care of this man, and he will not let them down. He's realistic because he approaches his job believing in the ideals of the revolution, but also always knowing that men are men, and that to lead them you have to appeal to certain ideals, but you also have to satisfy their interests. The way Washington gave integrity to the office of the presidency was he just did it. It was never a question that he was going to let his self-interest distort his decisions or affect his decisions, and so that was just the way it was. And there's a wonderful, bitter sentence by Napoleon, and this is the man who betrayed the French Revolution, who made himself emperor and plunged the world in war, and Washington comes up in some conversation, and he says, "They expected me to be another Washington." Well, yeah, they did, but he wasn't. That's the importance of Washington stepping down after 2 terms. by giving up this power once again for the last time, he teaches a lesson that this power is to be used for the good of the country, not for the aggrandizement or the glorification of the person who holds it.